Nobody saw this coming. Not the media, not the establishment, and certainly not the elites who thought that they had the narrative locked down. In the span of just a few days, Elon Musk detonated a political firestorm by calling the Anti-Defamation League. This is a group long considered untouchable. This is a hate group that hates Christians. Now think about that. It's just the weirdest thing. The world's most powerful tech CEO going head to head with an organization that has branded Turning Point USA and young Christian conservatives as extremists and terrorists. Nobody expected him to say it, but he did. And now the backlash is exploding. Now, at the very same time, President Donald J. Trump, yes, the current president of the United States, dropped his own bombshell, renewing his warning that Tylenol and combined vaccines could be linked to autism. Drop in autism if you think Trump is right about that. Now, the medical establishment is in full-blown panic mode, and they want you to dismiss it. They want you to look away, but Trump is not backing down. Now, I will say, I don't know why, but autism sure has been spiking in the last couple of decades. I'd never even heard of autism when I was in my teens. So what's up with that? And then out of nowhere, Senator John Fetterman, he breaks from his own party, warning that Democrats' constant Hitler and fascist smears are pushing America closer and closer to political violence. You heard that right, guys. A Democrat admitting what conservative America has been saying all along. Musk, Trump, Fetterman, three names, folks, three shockwaves, and together they have just flipped the narrative upside down. Now, guys, by the end of this video, you're going to see exactly why the establishment is completely terrified of what comes next. Hit the like button, subscribe, folks. Let's start with the explosion that lit this fire. Elon Musk versus the ADL. Now, on his own platform, X, Musk didn't just criticize, he essentially declared the Anti-Defamation League itself a hate group, saying it hates Christians and has been weaponizing false labels against conservatives. Now, think about that for a second, okay? You've got the richest man in the world, the head of Tesla, the head of SpaceX, and the platform where half of the political world lives is calling out one of the most powerful watchdog organizations in America. The establishment wanted silence, but Musk gave them thunder. Now, why did Elon Musk go this far? Well, it's because the ADL escalated. They officially listed Turning Point USA, founded by the late Charlie Kirk, as extremist. Their reasoning, TPUSA's Professor Watch List, claims of election denial, vaccine conspiracies, and incidents of racism linked to a few activists. But the real trigger was the ADL labeling Christian nationalism itself as a form of terrorism. But Musk, well, at least according to Musk, that crossed the line for him. He argued that this wasn't about fringe actions. This was an attack on the faith of millions. And for conservatives, this wasn't just a wrong, this was war. Now, this wasn't the first clash between Musk and the ADL. Actually, if you go back, all the way back to 2023, seems like ages ago, right? The group accused him of amplifying anti-Semitic tropes after he liked and defended a controversial post. It was just one freaking post, guys. They blamed him for a surge in so-called hate on X and pushed advertisers to boycott the platform, costing billions of dollars. Then came January 2025, when Musk's simple hand raise at Trump's inauguration was twisted into a Nazi salute. Do you guys remember that? It was so ridiculous. They blew this thing out of proportion, trying to make Elon Musk seem like he was a Nazi or something wild like that. Anyway, so the ADL, they ran with it, branding Musk as anti-Semite. I mean, he never forgot it. And now with the TPUSA smear, he is striking back harder, sharper, and with way more allies than ever before. Enter the conservative backlash. Firebrand Laura Loomer, a very close Trump ally, blasted the ADL as a far-left control organization that has lost all moral authority. She said that the group hides behind fighting hate while enabling lawfare against Christians and conservatives. Others piled on, pointing to the ADL's history of defending Democrats while targeting populist voices. The narrative shifted. What was once an untouchable civil rights nonprofit is now painted as a political weapon. And with Elon Musk amplifying the fight, conservatives see a chance to turn the tables. The establishment knows that this battle isn't going away. Now, most people, they don't even realize this, but their Medicare plan changes every single year without fail, folks. Network shift, prescriptions get dropped, premiums creep up, and the worst part, nobody even warned you about it. This is exactly why I call Chapter, guys. This is why I partner with Chapter. Their advisors, they review every Medicare plan that's available and they translate this hard to understand, super duper tiny fine print into plain English that you can understand so that you know exactly what you're getting. Leslie Taylor, she thought her Medicare plan was fine, right up until chapters showed her that she was overpaying by $1,000 a year. Sharon Bertusik, she got dropped from her Medicaid, but chapter guided her into Medicare coverage that restored her peace of mind. So here's a question. Are you 100% sure that your Medicare plan is still working for you, or are you just hoping that it is? Now, most people, they're not hoping anymore. Most people are already calling the phone number at the bottom of your screen right there, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. The phone number is 909-563-8279. This could be the best 5 minutes you've ever spent. Now, President Trump, he wasted no time weighing in. He framed Elon Musk's clash with the ADL as proof of what conservatives have endured for years. Silenced, smeared, dragged through the courts for daring to fight back. Trump called it lawfare, plain and simple. He reminded Americans that Democrats weaponized the system against him for 4 long years, only to cry foul when the tables turned. Now, to Trump, supporting Musk isn't just about free speech. It is about defending Christianity itself. For millions of voters, that message resonates loud and clear heading into this, or at least into his second year back in office. So Trump didn't stop there. Of course not. Trump doesn't let off the gas. This man has so much energy, it's unbelievable. So in one of the most controversial moves of his presidency, Trump doubled down on health warnings that the media despises. Standing alongside RFK Jr., Trump pointed to studies suggesting Tylenol use during pregnancy could be linked to autism and ADHD. Now, the medical establishment completely erupted, blasting it as reckless, but Trump refused to back down, saying mothers deserve the truth, not cover-ups. And when Tylenol itself quietly admitted that children and pregnant women should use caution, the conversation shifted. The question became unavoidable. What else has Big Pharma been hiding for all these years? Anybody else wondering other than me? Anybody else wondering what else Big Pharma has been hiding? Now, Trump and RFK Jr. also reignited the vaccine debate, specifically the MMR shot. Measles, mumps, rubella. Trump, he argued that when given separately, risks are low, but when combined, cases of autism appear to spike. Now, his claims tied all the way back to a whistleblower, CDC scientist William Thompson, who admitted in 2014 that data showing a link to neurological issues was buried. Now, for years, the establishment insisted that there was no connection, but reportings and recordings, documents, and testimony, they suggest otherwise. Trump framed it very simply. The government and Big Pharma prioritize profit over children's health. That line hit hard, folks, especially among parents that were already skeptical. Now, the outrage deepened when Trump pointed out the CDC to Big Pharma pipeline. Scientists who downplayed vaccine risks, well, let's just say that they didn't just move on. Many took these cushy jobs with pharmaceutical giants like Merck, cashing in with these different stock options that were worth millions of dollars. Now, to Trump's base, this wasn't just a coincidence. This was corruption. The very people entrusted with public safety, well, they sold out, they lied, and they got rich, very rich. And the media, well, they stayed silent. For ordinary Americans, the picture became blatantly clear. They were the lab rats in the system that was designed to enrich the elites. Trump vowed to expose it all. This promise that Trump made to expose them all has the establishment completely panicked. And so then came a shocker that no one ever expected. No one ever saw this one coming. John Fetterman, of all people, guys, breaking ranks with his own party. On his X account, he warned that Democrats tossing around words like Hitler and fascist are playing with fire. Fetterman said, "This unchecked rhetoric is fueling political violence and it must stop." Now, coming from a Democrat, this was explosive. He wasn't parroting the party line. He was calling out his own side. Now, for conservatives, this was vindication. For Democrats, this was seen as betrayal. And for the media, well, it was a nightmare narrative that they just couldn't control. Now, Fetterman backed his warning with data. He shared an Axios study tracking 750 domestic political attacks since 1994. The results stunned even some skeptics. Since 2016, left-wing extremists carried out 41 attacks, killing 13 people, while right-wing extremists caused more deaths overall. But here's the real kicker. In the first half of 2025, there were 5 left-wing attacks compared to just 1 right-wing attack. Fetterman argued that calling opponents Nazis, it only stokes these sorts of outcomes. So he told America that the temperature must come down or violence will continue to keep climbing. And Democrats, they hated hearing it from one of their own. Of course they did, right? Now, what made Fetterman's message so devastating was that it wasn't directed to conservatives. It was actually aimed straight at Democrats. He told his own colleagues to stop dehumanizing political opponents with labels like Hitler or fascist. He said it doesn't just poison debate, it incites violence. This was more than a break. This was a rebuke of the entire Democrat strategy since Trump entered politics. And for years, they've leaned on fear and demonization. And now, one of their own admitted it's gone too far. So this is why this backlash inside the party was immediate and it was vicious. So at the same time, you got Democrats launching yet another narrative that Trump is using lawfare for revenge. Now, after trying to jail him for over 700 years worth of charges, suddenly they are the victims. They point to former FBI Director James Comey's indictment as an example of Trump's so-called political vendetta. Guys, here's the real hypocrisy, okay? These are the same Democrats who weaponized the DOJ and the FBI to attempt to destroy Trump and his allies. They came after his family. So now that accountability, it has arrived. And now that it has arrived, they're screaming foul play. Folks, it's not revenge, it's just justice. And that double standard is impossible for ordinary Americans to ignore at this point. Now, Senator J.D. Vance, he stepped forward to dismantle the Democrats' claims. He reminded America that James Comey's indictment wasn't dreamed up in some Trump war room. It was handed down by a grand jury in Alexandria, Virginia. And that jury, not exactly Trump country, you know what I'm saying here? It returned 2 indictments out of the 3 requests. That's a pretty substantial amount. That's 2/3, folks. That's not politics. That's actually just due process. Vance, he went even further. He said Trump's DOJ has prosecuted both allies and opponents, proving the system under him is way more fair than anything that Biden ever ran. And so when it comes to Comey, J.D. Vance, he was very blunt. The man lied under oath. Now he's facing charges. It's just that simple. Here's what really rattled the establishment. Trump said Comey is just the beginning. He warned that more indictments are coming, hinting at Adam Schiff, Letitia James, and others who abuse their offices. Critics call it revenge, but Trump insists that it's more about restoring faith in the law. There will be others. This is what Trump said, and the media panicked after he said it. Now, for years, elites lived above accountability. Now, Trump is turning the spotlight back on them. The promise that no one is untouchable. This is why his supporters cheer and why his enemies are losing all sorts of sleep at night. Now, over the weekend, President Trump, he announced a rare high-level meeting of generals and admirals at Quantico. Nearly every top officer, even those that were stationed overseas, they were summoned. The media immediately whispered war preparations, but Trump described it very differently, a reset of America's war ethos. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, he echoed the same message, promising updated grooming standards, tougher discipline, and a renewed sense of unity. Now, it was one of the largest military gatherings in modern history. Now, for supporters, it signals strength. For critics, it was a little bit more unsettling. But that tension, peace through strength or steps toward conflict, that was the point. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in New York, guys. Democrat Mayor Eric Adams abruptly suspended his re-election campaign, citing obstacles to a viable run. Now, some insiders, they're saying that the move clears a path for Andrew Cuomo to re-enter politics. But here's the twist. Socialist candidate Zoran Mamdani, he has surged in polls, and he's also surged in the betting markets. It's crazy what's going on there. I don't know how many of you guys are betting folks. You've been out to Vegas. Anyway, this means New York, already strained under all of these leftist policies, could very well end up with an openly socialist mayor. Now, how many of you guys think that that's a horrible idea? I mean, even Democrats admit it. The city is on the brink of political transformation, and conservatives are seeing it as a warning of where unchecked progressive power is leading. And so just when you thought the swamp couldn't get any darker, another name tied to George Soros made the headlines. Howard Rubin, a former Soros financier, was arrested for allegedly trafficking women and keeping them in a so-called sex dungeon. The details are rather disturbing, to say the least. Stories of captivity, abuse, and power exploited for perverse purposes. Instantly, comparisons to Jeffrey Epstein have surfaced. Conservatives are asking the obvious question: how many elites knew? How many people looked the other way and Who else was involved? And for years, the left painted Soros as a saint of democracy. Now, his whole circle looks more and more like a scandal factory. And of course, on foreign policy, President Trump unveiled a 21-point plan for Gaza, and it stunned both the allies and enemies. He proposed working with the Abraham Accord nations to de-radicalize Gaza, build it into thriving cities, and restore stability for the people, not just Israel. But Trump's plan came with steel. Hostages must be released within 72 hours, or Israel would have free reign. Now, this wasn't a call for endless war. It was a roadmap for peace through strength. The vision of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and others rebuilding Gaza right alongside the US, this sent shockwaves across the region. As if the world wasn't already tense enough, Russia and Iran just inked a $2 billion deal for Moscow's Rosatom to build 4 nuclear reactors in Iran's Sirikak region. This is concerning. I mean, this particular project will generate about 5,000 megawatts of electricity, but the geopolitical consequences are absolutely enormous. Iran gains nuclear infrastructure, Russia gains deeper Middle Eastern influence, and America faces yet another security dilemma. Critics warn that this strengthens 2 of Trump's toughest adversaries. Supporters argue that it proves why Trump's America First doctrine, tariffs, sanctions, and military strength is way more vital than ever. Either way, the stakes for global power just skyrocketed. And then overnight, Russia went ahead and launched one of the largest strikes of the war. 595 drones and 48 missiles raining down on cities all across Ukraine. The targets weren't just military. They included residential buildings, kindergartens, and hospitals. At least 16 people were unalived, including children. Trump has pushed for a negotiated peace, hoping Putin will come to the table. But of course, this attack here shows that the Kremlin isn't backing down. For Americans, the question is rather chilling. Are we heading toward escalation, or can Trump's leadership pull the world back from the brink of World War III? Well, that uncertainty hangs in the balance over every move from here going forward. So here's where we stand, guys. Elon Musk exposing the ADL as a hate group, President Trump dropping bombshells on Tylenol, vaccines, and Big Pharma, and Senator John Fetterman breaking ranks with Democrats over dangerous rhetoric. If you add that to Comey's indictment, New York's socialist surge, Soros' financier scandal, and Russia's aggression abroad, you can see why the establishment's panicking so much. In fact, the narrative is collapsing, the truth is surfacing, and the balance of power, it is shifting rather fast. Folks, this is only the beginning. Like this video, share it everywhere, and subscribe so that you do not miss what comes next. Because the story that the media won't tell you, I'm gonna go ahead and cover it right here. We'll see you next time.